are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Hello and welcome to Weather Watch on Germantown Municipal Television. I'm your host, Finnegan Gruggett, a student at Houston High School. You see them every day on the local news, but you ever wonder what it's like being a broadcast meteorologist? Ron Childers, Chief Meteorologist at WMC Action News 5, is here to answer those questions. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be here, sir.
Most people probably know who you are, but would you mind introducing
Believe it or
yourself?
not, there are those who don't. But yes, I am the Chief Meteorologist at WMC Action News 5. I've been with WMC since 1986. So it'll be 30 years in December. I began my career in radio at FM 100, and then in 1989, I made the transition into weather on a part-time basis. And it was in 90 that I moved into television full-time. Recently, took over the position as Chief Meteorologist as Dave Brown, who was a longtime legend and meteorologist here in Memphis, retired. So I stepped in to carry on his legacy.
Where did you get your degree in meteorology at?
From Mississippi State. So, and as a matter of fact, a lot of meteorologists in this area go to Mississippi State. Couple of reasons: it's close, and they're one of the few schools in the area that offer a broadcast meteorology program.
So when you go into the studio, what's an average week like for you?
Wow, what is an average week? Well, on a week like this week and the last couple, we've had dry weather. So I have been able to focus on other aspects of my job, maintaining and upgrading computer systems. Because putting together the forecast in a pattern like this, we don't have to spend as much time. So typically my day starts about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll usually have a school visit, a civic group visit. I've also been chairing, or am chairing, the Heart Walk this year. So I've spent a lot of time working with donors and encouraging others to get involved in the Heart Walk. So that in and of itself is somewhat of has become a bit of a full-time job on the side. But I get into the office at about 2 in the afternoon, spend the first hour looking over weather data, charts, spend a little time answering emails, sit down, put together the graphics about 3:30, and then get prepared for the 5 p.m. newscast.
So you do a lot of stuff with the public, like do you go to schools often?
I go to a lot of schools. As a matter of fact, yesterday I traveled to Batesville and spoke at the Rotary Club there, and then went to their intermediate school following that. So I spent the early part of my day in Batesville and got back in time to do 5 p.m. news.
Was there anything that hooked you into weather particularly? Is there anything that grabbed your attention?
Well, you know, really my career in broadcasting, in weather, I should say, just kind of came along. I originally wanted to be a disc jockey. And for those who may not know, a disc jockey is the guy who used to play records and songs on the radio before the iPad came along, or the iPod, I should say. But being a broadcaster, a radio broadcaster, is what I wanted to do. So I had followed that. I worked at WRBR for a few years, and then I went on to FM 100. However, the thing that sparked my interest in weather, there was a period of time when I was young, I didn't have a car. I rode a bicycle everywhere I went. And I rode that bike for about 5 years, everywhere, through all sorts of rain, the heat, the cold, rain, snow. I even rode that bicycle through the core of a severe thunderstorm. At the time, not knowing that was the core of a severe thunderstorm. But that's where my interest in weather was sparked. It was years later when I was working at FM 100 that I was approached by Dave Brown. I had expressed an interest in weather, and this was in 1989. He told me that there was a part-time position that was opening, and at the time, television stations didn't hire meteorologists, they hired broadcasters, because all we did was rip the National Weather Service forecast from the wire, put some graphics to it, and present it. So we were more broadcasters or presenters than meteorologists. Right around the mid-90s, the trend changed and television stations started hiring meteorologists. So I ended up going back to school, getting my degree in meteorology from Mississippi State. I did their broadcast meteorology program online. Completed that in 4 years, and today have the AMS seal of approval, member of the National Weather Association, and have been forecasting weather in totality for the last 25 years.
How have weather instruments changed over the years you've been doing weather?
Tremendously. When I started Finnegan, we had 2 computers in the weather office. We had a graphics computer that we used to create the images that we put on the air. And then we had another computer that was just an old MS-DOS computer that we used to type messages. This was even before email. And to enter, if we were doing a forecast discussion or wanted to send something in the newsroom, we would use the computer for that. Today, I've got about 20 different computers in the Weather Center. Radar technology has changed tremendously. I got into the business at the very beginning of just color radar. We had an old radar that was actually from a airplane that had been it was aviation radar. And we had converted that to put on the air. Then another radar came along, and it was in 32 colors. The radar we have now, I forget how many thousands of colors it will have. We can look at things 3-dimensionally. Satellite imagery has changed as well. We used to get 1 or 2 satellite images a day. Now we get them updated every 30 minutes. NORAD data or radar data from the Weather Service is updated every 5 minutes. We have our live 1,000,000-watt radar as well. So the technology has changed considerably in a very, very short period of time.
So we have a little under a minute left, but before we go to our break, how many meteorologists does Channel 5 have on staff?
We employ 4 meteorologists. Spencer Denton handles our morning broadcast. Spencer is from the area. He grew up in Nashville, but he's forecasted weather in Jonesboro, Huntsville, Nashville. He got his degree from Mississippi State, a master's in meteorology. Andrew Kozak is our midday and afternoon meteorologist. Andrew originally grew up in New York, but he has spent a number of years in the Central Plains, in Oklahoma, forecasting weather there, chasing tornadoes. And Brittany Bryant is our weekend meteorologist. Brittany, some may know her stepfather, who is Brian Teglin. She's following her stepfather's footsteps. She too possesses a master's in meteorology.
We're out of time for this segment. We'll be back in a minute to talk more with WMC Action News 5's Ron Childers. Please stay with us.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who wants to care of you.
Cinderella found the pet that fits her perfectly. Tiana gave her pet the royal treatment. Belle found beauty where no one else did. And you can too. Share your heart. Share your love. Bring home your forever friend. Make a shelter pet part of your world. Happily Ever After begins at theshelterpetproject.org.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back. I'm Finnegan Gruggett, and you're viewing Weather Watch. We'll continue our discussion about broadcast meteorology with Ron Childers, Chief Meteorologist at WMC Action News 5. So when we're talking about the National Weather Service and broadcast meteorologists, is there any major difference between the two?
You know, we both work together to inform the public, and especially, and we work hand in hand when there is severe weather in the area. Of course, they put out their forecast daily. We do our own forecasting. Oftentimes people think that television meteorologists or television weather people just are repeating whatever the National Weather Service does. At WMC Action News 5, we put together our own forecast several times a day. So we're constantly looking at the data. We have a forecast that comes out in the morning. We're ready to go with that at 4:30 a.m. We update that information at noon, then at 4, 5, and 6. And then in the evening, I'm looking at newer data to make any modifications to our presentation at 10. And then, of course, the National Weather Service puts out their own forecast as well. But really, the partnership is in full swing when there's severe weather in the area. We rely on the National Weather Service to issue watches and warnings. We use information from the National Weather Service chat to alert the public to any damage that may be occurring, extreme weather that may be taking place in the area, sightings of tornadoes, areas that may be flooded. So there is a wonderful partnership. And Finnegan, the way you and I met, we were working with the National Weather Service. They partnered with our television station on a safety seminar. So we were spending an afternoon helping to inform the public on ways to stay safe in severe weather, and for us that day, the heat.
The heat, definitely. Yeah. So how long does it take for you guys to make your forecast, and could you walk us through each shift?
Our morning guy comes in at about 3:30, and he goes on the air at 4:30. Spencer typically will put together his forecast before he goes to bed at night. He's looking at the latest data that is in the evening hours. He'll hit the sack around 8 o'clock. He's up and at 'em by 2:30. He's into the office between 3 and 3:30. He'll look at any new information that comes in, but when he walks through the door, he's got a pretty good handle on what the weather will be like for the day and for the week ahead. He then spends a little time entering that into our web page, our mobile app, because digital has now changed the game. Television weather used to just come on in the morning at noon, 5, 6, and 10. Now, people want the weather every minute, every day, no matter where they are on their phones. So all that information is input into our weather app, into the database that disperses it to the app. And then he'll spend some time putting together the graphics. So he'll go on at about 4:30 with that. By 10 a.m., Andrew Kozak comes in and starts preparing for the noon. So he's making any adjustments, any modifications to newer data that may be alluding to something in the immediate, within a short period of time, or even looking farther into the week or the 7 to 10 day period, and make any modifications there. Again, updating the web, updating our web videos, updating the information on the app. I get into the office at about 2. We spend from 2 until 3 going over weather data. Now, I've already looked at data when I get up in the morning. It's the first thing I do. Most people turn on the TV and watch a little news. I open up the iPad or the laptop and start taking a look at weather charts. So I've got a pretty good handle of what the forecast is going to be when I walk in. then we'll make modifications again that evening. And again, updating the web, updating the app, all our digital platforms, video and text information is all updated about 4 to 5 times a day. In an active weather pattern, it can be updated every hour.
So what do you guys consider an accurate forecast?
You know, an accurate forecast is getting it right. That's accurate, right? You want to get it right. Every now and then, Mother Nature will throw us a curve. It happens. Weather is not an exact science. The forecast data that we have, the highest resolution is about a 4-kilometer resolution. So if you look at that, and 4 square kilometers, that's a big area. 4 kilometers this way, and this way, that's 16 kilometers within an area that there's no data for. So you still have to speculate for that and look at the bigger pattern, the bigger picture. But we pride ourselves in being right more than we're wrong. But every now and then, yeah, Mother Nature will throw a curveball, because you know the slightest thing, a slight shift in the wind, the temperature going up 2 to 3 degrees above what forecast models or what we suspect takes place, and all of a sudden that changes that little microcosm of weather.
How long does it take for you to forecast specific weather? What's the difference between the amount of time it takes to forecast the weather we have right now here in Memphis, which is heat and then snow?
Well, this pattern is very simple. We can spend probably about 30 minutes to an hour looking at what it's going to do today, tonight, for the next 7 days. When we get into a snow event, winter events are especially difficult. And I liken it to playing golf. Imagine, do you play golf, Finnegan?
No, not
All right.
often.
I play golf, but not regularly. So I'm not very good, right? So if you only play golf a couple of times a year, you're going to be a fair to middling golfer. If you play golf every day, you're going to be much better. Forecasting winter weather is just like that. We only have a couple of winter events each year, big winter events. So you have to really go back into your memory, brush up on lessons learned from the past, because that plays a big part in the forecast as well, looking and being able to recognize those patterns, relying more so on the data. So winter weather forecasting, I will tell you, is difficult, but we try to look at that as far in advance as we can. Because if there is a big winter storm coming, people want as much advance warning to that and as advance notice as they can possibly get. And we tweak it up till the very last minute.
We're out of time for this segment, but we'll be back right after this quick break. Please stay with us.
Get caught buzz driving, and you could do some hard time.
Craig, knock it off.
Sorry, Mom.
It could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. And that could set you back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back. I'm Finnegan Gruggett, and you're tuned in to Weather Watch. We want to spend our last moments talking about what role broadcast meteorology plays in educating the public about severe weather. So earlier we were talking about what shifts you do and what you do at Channel 5. Mm-hmm. What particular shift you really like to work?
You know, I have really come to enjoy the evening shift simply because you get a little more sleep. The morning shift, however, is its own dynamic. It's its own entity. It was really nice to be able to leave the office at about 10:30, 11 o'clock and have the rest of the day, especially in nice weather. Getting up at 2:30 in the morning was a bit difficult. But the shift I'm in now, I thoroughly enjoy. Absolutely enjoy it. I deal more with severe weather working the evening shift as well. The morning shifts tend to be a little less active in regard to weather. The atmosphere is typically a little more stable during the morning hours, overnight and morning. In the afternoon, that's when we see our daytime heating. That's when we're going to be dealing with more convection, more pop-up showers and storms. Fronts that come through have the potential to have a greater punch to them due to the heating of the day. So I get a lot more active weather in the afternoon shift.
What areas do you guys forecast for?
We cover eastern Arkansas, West Tennessee, northern Mississippi. So we've got about 30 counties in the area that we forecast for, including Memphis and Shelby County, which is our most densely populated area. So we tend to be a little Shelby County centric because of the higher population within the county, but we're still covering weather for the other counties in East Arkansas, West Tennessee, and northern Mississippi.
Is there any area that's busier than the other in terms of weather?
You know, it depends on the season. Winter seasons seem to be a little more active in eastern and northeastern Arkansas. In the springtime, we'll see more activity along and north of the, or I should say wintertime, along and north of the I-40 corridor. That's where we have to really deal with hone in our weather forecast, our winter weather forecasting skills. You get into the summer months, typically south of I-40. It's interesting how that I-40 corridor is a delineating line between two almost completely different areas of weather and forecasting.
How has technology changed in the ways of getting the word out about severe weather and educating the public?
Wow, we can do everything. We can do things instantaneously right now through videos on the web, our app. We are launching a new product in our weather app that will allow us to geo-target a specific area so that we can issue, let's say we have a storm that's in Arlington that people in Germantown or Collierville may not care about. They've got sunshine and blue sky. We can geo-target a video to go to people in Arlington that will appear on their app without bothering other people in other parts of the county, the city, or the area. So technology has changed that. If there are strong storms in northern Mississippi, we can geo-target that area on our app. Now, here's the thing. If there is a tornado in those areas, we're going to interrupt your TV programming, no matter where it is. If it is in a county that we cover, we will go on to alert the public in that area through TV. And oftentimes, people aren't so happy if you interrupt their programming and it's nice and sunny there, but we've got a potentially deadly tornado in another part of the area. It's been my experience that most people tend to only care about the weather at their backyard. And I understand that, but we are covering a large area.
So what are some of the more noticeable storms you forecasted over your career?
Wow, probably Ice Storm 94. That was my most memorable. Were you born in 94?
No,
Finnegan?
I was.
I did not think so. So that's a memory for me and a history for you. The city of Memphis and much of the Mid-South blanketed in more than an inch of ice that brought down power lines and transformers that left people without power for days, weeks, in some areas even a month or so. We had the February 5th outbreak of tornadoes that ripped right through the heart of Memphis. And then most recently, the tornadoes that came through on December 3rd of last year to December 23rd that moved through northern Mississippi, devastated parts of Marshall County from Holly Springs to Walnut. So I've seen it all.
I know you guys have a storm chasing car. Would you mind explaining that and if that's been on any strong storms?
Yeah, this is one of the things that we wanted for a long time and were able to finally get last year. It is fabulous. We have a 2016 Chevy Tahoe. The fine folks at Sarah Chevrolet worked a deal with us to get that vehicle. We outfitted it with a tremendous amount of weather equipment. We ripped everything out of it. There are 2 seats in it, and the driver's seat and then a rear passenger seat. We did a wraparound desk. We've got 3 GoPro cameras, one that mounts on top that goes around 360 degrees. And if we see storms or tornadoes, we can lock onto it and drive, and the camera will follow it. We put a weather kit on there. We've got radar. We just recently imported our own 1,000,000-watt radar into the vehicle so that we can have current, accurate radar data while we're driving around, while we're chasing storms. And there is, we've got 2-way radio capabilities. It's got wireless internet, all these different things. And in the back, we put a 42-inch flat screen TV that can broadcast a multitude of different options for us to display on air or on a nice day like this. I took it to Batesville yesterday. You can do a presentation for school kids around that. So it's a great tool for us in storm chasing, in marketing, and in spreading our WMC Action News 5 brand.
So we have under a minute left, but have you all been able to chase any big storms with it yet?
You know, here's the thing. Brittany Bryant, Spencer, and Andrew Kozak get to go in the vehicle whenever there's bad weather. I'm stuck in the studio. The chief meteorologist has to be in the studio when the weather is bad. So I only get to drive the storm tracker when it's nice, sunny, and dry outside. But they're the real storm chasers. And let me tell you, they head straight towards the core every time.
Well, thank you for coming on to the show. I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. I'd like to thank Ron Childers for taking the time out of his day to be on our show. If you'd like to learn more about this show or simply watch more of our programs, please visit www.gmtvonline.org. Until next time, this has been Finnegan Gruggett for this month's installment of Weather Watch.